Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and welcome to Co-Production International's webinar, A Guide to Setting Up Your Manufacturing Operation in Mexico. My name is Denise Martinez, and I am the Marketing Director and Business Development for Co-Production International. Co-Production International is an expert and a specialist in establishing manufacturing operations in Mexico. We do this under the Shelter program. The company has been around for 44 years, and under that time, we have established over 300 companies in Mexico for a wide variety of industries, from medical devices, aerospace, automotive, electronics, furniture, you name it. Our headquarters are in San Diego, California. We have our main administrative team and offices in Tijuana, Mexicali, and Tecate. We recently expanded to Mérida, Monterrey, and Saltillo, Coahuila. Today, our expert, Veronica Contreras, will share with us, will give us an inside scoop on the key elements to consider when evaluating a potential expansion to Mexico. From site selection, finding the right region for you, industrial real estate, all the costs that you have to consider, and the proven strategy to setting up in Mexico. So let's get started, and feel free to send your questions in as they occur to you. We will address them at the end of each section. Well, an introduction on our expert, Veronica Contreras. She has been working over 20 years with CEO executives from global companies on their evaluation and expansion to Mexico. She also helps them with sale and leasing of commercial investment properties for industrial site. And she's an expert in facilitating the startup process of a maquiladora through the Shelter program. She has more than 100 projects under her belt. Welcome and thank you. I'll give the word to Veronica Contreras.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Co-Production, for putting this very valuable event together. We have found that this has been a very interesting time for foreign investment, and I'm really pleased that this type of event webinar was put together so that we can help answer some of the typical questions that are coming in as foreign investors are evaluating their initial setup in Mexico. So today we're going to talk a lot about real estate and how companies should do this evaluation. We're going to talk a lot about industrial real estate, the type of industrial real estate, some timing. We're also going to talk about costs, the manufacturing costs, the time frame of actually from real estate to actual execution of a manufacturing facility, as well as the proven model of helping companies get their projects started in Mexico. So without further ado, I first wanted to talk about just a general overview of what a maquiladora is. I love the word because it's just been around for so long. It really is now the way that we define the industry, which is cross-border, companies or foreign companies operating in Mexico. What the word actually means is it's a factory in Mexico that's run by a foreign company exporting its products to the country of that company. The maquiladora program today is referred to as an EMEX. It's actually the name of the permit that we utilize for import and export trade. This aims to attract foreign investment, create jobs, foster industrialization, and boost Mexico's economy. I think this is important to understand because that is why foreign companies are receiving so many benefits while operating in Mexico. The program, jointly administered by Mexico and the US, offers foreign manufacturers a favorable duty or tariff-free environment, specifically for those operating in the US, Canada, or Mexico countries, the USMCA. So I have a lot of companies right now that are evaluating doing this on their own, and understanding how the EMEX works is key to your understanding and success in Mexico. We're not going to get into that during today's webinar, but please, this is some follow-up for those of you that are looking to do this on your own, is really understand how the EMEX program works, the benefits, and all of the obligations that Mexico has, as well as the US has, because you're going to be receiving these benefits in Mexico. Next, we're going to talk about some of the key factors for site selection in Mexico. So we're going to jump right into it. The first section is all about site selection. And we're going to look at some maps on just the general overview of how EMEX companies are operating through all of Mexico. Can we go ahead and show that map? Perfect. So this is a map of all of the different EMEXs throughout Mexico. You're going to see that Baja California has the largest concentration of EMEX permits throughout all of Mexico. What we have in Baja California, which is the northwest border region to California, is we have a lot of factories that are smaller. They're averaging around, let's say, 500 employees per factory. But on the Baja region, we've got the smaller EMEXs on kind of the Juarez area, Monterrey. We have much bigger factories. They have higher headcounts. The factories are less, so there's less EMEX permits in that area, but the factories are very, very large. This is important to understand how Mexico is kind of broken up in regards to EMEXs and the type of manufacturing facilities that are operating there, because essentially you're going to be wanting to plug into the supply chain that's existing there. So you want to understand, the industry. So this map is perfect to understand how the industry is broken up, because you want to make sure that you have the appropriate supply chain for your type of factory. But you also want to understand if there's enough labor, experienced labor for what you're going to be making in Mexico. You want to make sure, you also want to understand your competition, because eventually you will be competing against these factories for the key labor that's going to be working in your operation. So this is the industrial hub map. I love this map because it really shows what industries are operating where. So you're going to see along the border region. Let's go back one, Denise, to the industrial map. Let me just finish talking about that. Let's go back. So in the industrial map, all the border regions is all medical device. We have a lot of aerospace. That's what we're seeing. Of course, there's everything else under the sun, but those are the ones that really have the heartbeat there. Baja California is a medical device hub. Medical devices there. It's got a very strong hold. It's quickly reaching to be the largest concentration of factories in Baja California. But we also have a good amount of aerospace, some automotive. You're going to see in the Monterrey, Nuevo León area, we have a lot of industry that's focused around automotive. We have heavier industry down there, electronics, secondary, and aerospace as well. And then Southern Baja, we have locations that maybe are more labor intensive. The labor tends to be less expensive the further south we go into the region. Puebla, also very strong in automotive, but has a lot of textile, food and beverage. And I think that kind of covers all of it. We can share this map for you. I think we have it on our website as well. So that just kind of gives you an overview of the industrial hubs of Mexico at a high overview. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So when we're talking about comparing locations between Mexico, we got to look at it as a whole. So this can be a complex and overwhelming analysis of understanding where you should set up your factory when considering Mexico. So the first step is to really evaluate the interior of Mexico versus the border regions. So what you're going to find in the interior is lower labor costs. There's more availability of labor because there's less competition. We have lower real estate costs. Logistics is going to be more expensive because your product is going to be moving further towards the border if your final destination is the US. So that's also a big question, is where's that final destination? And we'll get there in just a minute. When we're evaluating the border regions, we're going to evaluate the proximity to the US. So it's right next to the US, so our logistics cost is a lot less, more industrial parks to choose from. There's more available inventory and more buildings just because there's more industrial parks located along the borders. But we do have some higher turnover because there's more competition. There's more companies that are established along the border. Real estate tends to be more expensive along the border and there's more competition. There's also the ease of accessing the plant for US executives. So that's a pro. Executives can quickly get to the plant, do their business and get back to the US. So that's a driver sometimes for when companies are evaluating where to set up in Mexico. There's also a tax consideration. So along the border right now, we're enjoying a tax benefit of 8%, whereas the interior of Mexico is at a 16% value added tax. So that's something also to consider. So we throw all this to an equation. The second step when we're evaluating where to set up in Mexico is we break it up by regions. So if you've decided, you've got the northeast or the northwest region, which is Baja California, and then you have the northeast region, which is Monterey and Saltillo and those other locations. Those are kind of the big hubs right now. Lots of chatter on that, and then we have kind of Juarez in the middle. So those are really the big areas that a lot of companies are evaluating right now, especially a lot of you that are on this webinar. So when we're evaluating Northern Baja, which is Tijuana, Mexicali, Tecate, we are going to compare that to the Monterey, Saltillo, and Ramos Arizpe, which I talked about, which is a few hours away from the border, whereas Baja California is near the border. We're going to evaluate different parameters when we're comparing these types of cities. We actually do a city comparison to help our investors understand which areas and regions of Mexico make the most sense based on their objectives and goals. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So here are some of the questions that you need to answer when you're talking about how to get started. Border versus interior, right? I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but those are kind of the big high level. Border versus interior. Which area makes the most sense and what are your tolerances? What's the availability of the specific labor that you're looking for? For example, a lot of companies set up in Baja California who are in the medical device industry because they know they're going to find qualified labor in the medical device industry fields who've been working in this industry forever. The same goes for automotive. They might evaluate Puebla versus Monterey because we've got a lot of automotive and experience there. Where's the final delivery of your product? That's key. Where is the final destination? If it's going to be back into the US, which part of the US? If it's everywhere, then where may be less important to you at this point in regards to where in Mexico. If it's going to go, let's say, to Miami, because it's going to go to other parts of the world and you're using those ports, that's also a consideration. Where's your existing suppliers? And are you going to be moving the supply chain to Mexico after a couple of years? If that's the case, then we want to make sure when we're evaluating where to set up in Mexico, that there is an existing supply chain to meet your needs. And we have on the call Eduardo Solis, he's part of the CPI team, and this is his expertise, is evaluating supply chain for our existing clients and seeing and making sure that if our projects are moving forward, we are able to support them in that manner. If you're simply looking to just avoid the 30% duty that a lot of companies are feeling right now because they're manufacturing in China, then other considerations might be put into place. For example, it might not matter where you're going into Mexico to use specifically. Maybe you have a lot of options and it's just an assembly operation or it's less complex. So then we are going to evaluate other things like the access to international airports, depending on where people are going to be flying in from. What's the local political climate in Mexico? That might be something that we want to consider. The US border city. I have a lot of clients that have chosen Tijuana because they love San Diego and they want to be close to San Diego, and it's a border city and that's a great option. So those are some interesting ways that companies have taken into consideration on where to set up in Mexico. You do not want to tackle all of this alone. I know that evaluating can be very complex and there's a lot of factors that you need to take into consideration. We evaluate the political climate, security, population, number of industrial parks, availability of vacancy rates. For example, right now, Tijuana has less than a 1% vacancy rate. So it's definitely not a place for wanting to set up right now if you're looking to set up now because everything is kind of in construction. But all of these factors have to get put in. You have to work with a seasoned professional like Co-Production International, where they can help you put all of this information into an analysis and help you understand what the real expectations are for your move to Mexico. Co-Production has this really cool tool called a city comparison. So that's something that can be done for your project as you're evaluating manufacturing in Mexico. Next, we're going to jump into industrial real estate and kind of what you can expect there. What we have are different categories of properties. We have industrial parks, like the one that you're looking at now on the screen. This is a traditional industrial park in Tijuana. You would have different buildings that look very much like a US industrial building. And the industrial park is fully secured with security guards to the facilities. This is what we would call a Class A building. There's also standalone buildings. So standalone buildings are typically just one building that's all by itself. It's not in an industrial park. And that could be something that is available. And then we're going to talk about the different classes when we talk about buildings. There's a Class A, a Class B, and a Class C. Industrial, these classifications of the A, B, and C are somewhat subjective terminology because it varies from market to market. Today, I'm attempting to kind of give you broad strokes on what you can expect when we talk about Class A. For example, a Class A in Tijuana may not be a Class A in California, but it's going to be a very nice industrial building. But in general terms, Class A buildings are the newest and the best buildings in terms of specification, quality, and location. Class C buildings, on the other end, are older buildings that are basically or technically obsolete. These buildings were built back in the 1980s. They're very short in height. They're anywhere from 12 or 13 feet in height, as opposed to a Class A building that may be 24, 30, 28, or 34 feet of clear height. The broader classification of a Class B building is everything kind of in between. So it's neither an A or a C, but again, it's relative. And this is just kind of a brief description of a Class A, B, or C. Typically right now, because of the way the markets are moving, Class A's are what are more readily available. But now I'm going to help you understand just the two differences between the two of the big metropolitan cities that are causing a lot of attention right now. I'm trying to give you broad strokes between Northeast and Northwest. So in Northwest Mexico, and that is Tijuana, Tecate, Mexicali, the real estate market is hot. Our industrial vacancy rates in Baja California are averaging about 1% among Tijuana, Mexicali, and Tecate. In the Baja region, no one is moving out, and that's the reason why the demand is very high. So any building, there's really very low inventory buildings that are available, and existing operations are also expanding. So we have new investment with existing operations that are expanding. So we have very, very high demand and just a lot less availability. To give you an idea on costing, right now we're averaging between 48 cents and 70 cents per square foot. I know it's a very, very big range, but that's, Tijuana, we're close to about 70 cents. Mexicali, we're around 48 cents to 50 cents. And then we kind of find everything in between. The lease expectations in the Baja California region are between 7 and 10 years right now, in comparison to Northeast Mexico. Northeast Mexico, I'm talking about Monterrey, Saltillo, Ramos Arizpe, which is another big hub. The industrial market there is rapidly changing because a lot of us are shifting our business to that region because there's a lot of availability of land. You can still find some inventory buildings, and constructed buildings that are in process right now are not taken up. So these are currently, our vacancy rate there is about 4% right now, plus or minus. And we have an average lease rate of about 44 cents per square foot. So it is a lot more attractive. So right now I'm talking just high level net rents of, you're hearing right now in this case, 44 cents. We have to add a couple more concepts to that so you have an all-in price. We've got our net rent, and then we have our triple net, which is common in industrial parks. Our triple net is for property taxes, building insurance, and maintenance to any common grounds or common areas in the industrial parks. Depending on the location, that can average 2 pennies to another 5 pennies per square foot. In addition to that, you have your your IVA, your VAT. So that can vary between 8% and 16%. So you add up those three concepts to come up with your total cost for manufacturing, for your building costs. We are seeing a trend in heavier industries moving towards the region of Monterey. Companies who require large amounts of power, gas, and growth flexibility, these are the types of companies that are migrating more to Monterey. Companies like Johnson & Johnson, Philips, Mercedes-Benz are just a few companies that have set up their investment there. Just continuing a little bit more on the Northeast region. When we talk about supply chain, we're very close with proximity to target markets in the US. Monterey alone has the largest inland port. This allows the transporting of goods via various outlets, shipping, truck, air, and train that's not available in all other areas. It's also an easier region to buy land and own your own building, as opposed to the Northwest region, Baja region. There are companies who are able to easily buy easier in Monterey. So just kind of summing up to where we are in preparation for those of you that are getting ready to move forward and start looking at your site selection in Mexico, have your financials in order. Audited financials are better. So make sure that you have all that put together. They're going to ask for at least the last 3 years of your audited financials. That should be submitted to your broker. Identify how you're going to enter into a Mexican lease, whether it's going to be your own Mexican entity that should already have been established, because we're going to need a lot of that legal documentation. But if not, then, for example, working with a shelter like Co-Production International, they already have all of that documentation that's going to be required for you to be considered a serious client for that developer. Because remember, this is a very competitive market, so you need to go in with your best foot forward when approaching any developer in Mexico for your consideration of leasing your building. You, as a US foreign investment, you are going to be guaranteeing a building in Mexico. What that means is that you're going to be taking financial responsibility for this building in Mexico. Usually it's about a 2-3 page document that the US company will sign, basically taking financial responsibility for this commitment. That's just something for you to be aware of. When doing any site visit, all of this documentation should already be in order. You should already have your game plan on how you're going to move forward. So be ready to make offers when visiting the sites. Timing to get into lease execution can be daunting. So make sure that you have your Mexican counsel already prepared. You've already defined who's going to be reviewing the lease agreement, because when you go make a visit, you want to be able to make an offer, come back, start reviewing lease agreements. All of this can take about 3 to 4 months from when you actually visit the site and decide that this is going to be your new home to actual lease execution. That's a 3 to 4 month process. So make sure you have that Mexican counsel ready to go. I have a lot of clients who will want to work with US counsel, and it's a constant reminder that you are working in a foreign country. So these are Mexican laws. So having a Mexican attorney is definitely the way to go when trying to review a Mexican legal document, which is the Mexican lease agreement. Great. Well, that kind of concludes my whole site selection conversation with you all. I hope I gave you some interesting tidbits. Next, I want to share with you a case study of a company who went through this process just like you. One of our clients, Icon Aircraft, started this analysis back in the summer of 2016. And they also were trying to figure out where to set up in Mexico. They did a full evaluation of the country after they decided that Baja California was the appropriate location for them because of their proximity to their US headquarters, which is located in Vacaville, California. They also identified that the experienced labor force in this region was appropriate for their operation. They selected Tijuana as their choice. They chose CPI as their partner in Mexico to help them with the journey. They faced many challenges, and they had some very specific ones. One was time frame, and the other was site selection. So what they needed was a 300,000 square foot facility. They needed a lot of power, and they wanted to start in 3 months from when they started their evaluation. So those were a lot of very challenging parameters. So what we did for them in helping serve them, and this was back in 2016, so the market has changed pretty dramatic, but we were able to start them off in a 30,000 square foot facility that we had in Tijuana while we were doing a build to suit for their 300,000 square foot facility. Co-production quickly was able to help them start importing equipment, as well as hire a core team of employees, so that by the time the 300,000 square foot facility was completed, we could do a transfer to that facility and they could continue on with their production goals and initiatives. It's cases like these that put a spotlight on the local talent, infrastructure, the know-how, and the expertise available. Let's take a closer look at what Icon aircraft looks like today. Denise, are you able to put the video? Well, while Denise pulls up that video, this was a very interesting project for Icon. They were definitely, oh, here we go.
Let me know if everyone can hear. I'm sorry.
Perfect.
Two years ago, this was just a mound of dirt. It wasn't even a building yet. Today, we're in a 300,000 square foot building. We employ over 600 employees here in Tijuana. Over 500 are in the production side. My name is Jason Courtney. I am the Manufacturing Engineering Manager for Icon Tijuana. Here, we build all of the carbon structures that are on the aircraft. So we do all of the laminating, which is a hand process to manufacture the carbon parts. We do all the assembly, and we do some of the paint. In-house here. We take layers of fabric, put them into a mold, and produce whatever the particular component is. From there, it goes through a trimming operation, then a bonded assembly, and a painting operation. So basically, what leaves here looks like an airplane. The facility is designed to support up to 80 aircraft per month, and the side that we're occupying now will support up to 40. There's no type of manufacturer anywhere near this as what we're doing in-house today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Denise. That's a great video. Just to kind of give you some highlights of what an operation, a typical operation looks like in Mexico. So next, we're going to talk about the cost of manufacturing in Mexico. So we hear a lot of companies asking us, what's it cost? What can I expect when it comes to labor, overhead costs, and what other costs should we plan for? So just to talk very general, because we're talking about a large country, We put an example here for you. So the labor cost is averaging around $3.50. Again, that's a very broad number, but that's for a kind of an entry labor type of employee. We can go to the next slide. And for a company, let's say in California that has around 70 employees, you can expect to save about $2 million in savings alone, just on the direct employees. A typical employee in Mexico for the first year can have several increases throughout that first year. That's a strategy that Co-Production International implements. We have an entry level rate of about $3.50. That $3.50 is fully burdened, includes all the taxes and benefits for an employee in Mexico. During the first 3 months, that employee is evaluated, and if they're meeting the appropriate marks, then they get a little bump to maybe about $3.60. And this continues to happen over the next 3 months until we complete the first year, until we kind of have a stable labor environment. It's important to note that when you're starting a fresh new operation in Mexico, there's a lot of movement in the labor. I hate to use the word turnover because turnover is more defined when you have an established operation. Although this is more of a, they're getting to know the environment, they're getting to know the factory, they're trying to see if this is a good fit. So obviously the first 6 months of a new operation, there's a lot more of adjustments happening with these employees, which is why we have this scaled labor rate for that first year for an operation. Next, what we look at is we've got our kind of a cost comparison for an operation that is in Mexico to give you some high level numbers. Let's look at that comparison, Denise. Okay, we did this one already. Let's do the next one.
Which, can you see this one, the US versus Mexico?
Yeah, we covered that one already, the savings. Perfect. So this is an analysis or a comparison that we did for a company with 100 employees. In Mexico, they work a 48-hour work week as opposed to a 40-hour work week. And in this scenario, their labor cost was about $1.8 million for the year. Overhead and admin fees was about 1.2 million. So a total cost of about $3 million. So the hourly rate for this operation is about $12. That's pretty common. Hourly rates are typically between $9 and $13, $14, but of course it varies on the operation. For example, if we have a low headcount operation and high overhead, meaning a building that's 100,000 square feet with a lot of power, then it's going to skew our hourly rates. But for a typical average type of operation in Mexico, this is a good scenario of information that you can expect. And then we have our startup costs here. We can go to the next slide. Some other costs to consider besides our labor and our overhead is our capital expenditures. So this is stuff that you need to plan for. Your tenant improvements, your capital equipment or production equipment, information technology equipment. That one always seems to kind of surprise people. So right now there's some very strict rules in Mexico. So laptops, IT equipment, all of that needs to be purchased in Mexico. And your shelter operator, Co-Production International, can help you with all of that. But these are numbers that you need to plan for and budget for. All the laptops, all of that infrastructure that's going to be required for that operation. Raw materials also, you need to plan for that, obviously. Training and travel expenses, insurance, and interesting enough, we just had a big inauguration and we didn't have that in the budget. So depending on what your company's flavor is we also have to plan for the inauguration, depending on how much noise your company wants to make in Mexico. Small expenses, but things that we need to plan for. We can do the next slide. Next, we're going to talk about timeline. We've talked about what is left to understand is how long it will take for us to get started and then how. So that's the timeline. So this is just a really high level summary. We have these amazing Microsoft project timelines that really break it down to every detail. But just to give you a sense of what's happening in today's market because of the high demand, site selection can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, probably more 6 months than 3 months, especially if you're looking for anything north of 50,000 square feet. Why? Because we have to evaluate complex issues like your infrastructure needs, electricity, water, natural gas, etc. So it's not just about going out and finding a building, it's going out and finding a building that meets all of your specifications. So that can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Next, once we have a building and we've negotiated the lease and we signed the lease agreement, we need to obtain the EMEX branch approval. That is with your EMEX, and that can take anywhere around 3 months. So from lease execution to the point that you can actually start importing equipment is about 3 months. So now if we add 6 and 3, we're already 8 months in, or 9 months in, 6, 7, 8, 9 months in. Simultaneously to waiting for your EMEX branch approval, we're handling tenant improvements to the facility, depending on the complexity of your facility. It could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months. If it's a clean room, it can take longer. We also have to get utilities into that building. That can take an average of 3 months, depending on how much power your operation is going to have. Anything over 1,000 kVAs definitely will take 3 to 4 months to make sure that we have everything that we need for that facility. And then we hire our key management that is happening simultaneously. As you see, we noted it with the light blue boxes. Those are all kind of happening at the same time. And then we hire our directs at the very end. There's a whole bunch of things happening on the back end, but just to give you a very high level overview of your timeframes, this is what this is for. We can go to the next one. So once we understand our timing, now the question is how? How are you going to go about doing this? You have a couple options. You can do this all on your own. You can go hire an attorney, you can hire an accountant, and a Mexican attorney, Mexican accountant, to help you figure out what's the right way for you to set up. Your executive team is going to be focusing their time and energy on figuring out what's the right setup, where's the right location. They're going to be doing all of this legwork on their own, and they're going to be doing it with half information and limited experience and know-how, which is the typical scenario. This is why a company like ours, Co-Production International, was founded 40 years ago, because a lot of executives just like you were going on this adventure and trying to figure out this journey of setting up their operations in Mexico. There was this aerospace company, a client of ours, that started this exact process. They actually executed an operation, set up their entity on their own, and they were a neighbor of ours. And we saw that they were really struggling in opening up their operations. They were paying the rent for this 100,000 square foot facility month after month. And 6 months in, nothing was happening. There was no lights or electricity in the building. They had no employees. And the plant manager, instead of focusing on production and getting operations started, he was focusing on figuring out how to get power to his building, because that's a complex process all on its own. We kept offering our services. They were quite confused on why it was so difficult. And it's not that it's impossible, it's just different. It's a foreign country. And we kept trying to help them understand, it's not that your plant manager doesn't know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to make your product. He knows how to train your employees. That's what you hired him for. But he's not here to help figure out how to get power, water, and how to get you started. That's just not, that's not the typical skill set of a plant manager. So finally, they allowed us to come in, and quickly we were able to identify where the issues were and get their operation open within a month. Today, this client is an independent corporation, but we continue to provide them with all of our administrative services. And it's examples like these that really got Co-Production International started, and why we continue to passionately serve our clients in setting up their operations in Mexico. So what we do as a shelter service provider is we do everything that we just talked about. We help you find the right location. We help you understand why. We help manage the entire ramp up process of the operation, from hiring your key employee, from your plant manager, all the way down to your janitor. We help you understand what the costs are, as well as manage the entire import-export area, which is one of the heaviest areas when we're starting a ramp up. What that means is, how are we going to get equipment into Mexico, and how are we going to get final product back out? So that's the whole management of the EMEX program. During the ramp up, we're handling all of the tenant improvements. We're offering you different solutions, helping you understand what our reasonable costs are, helping you make sure that we have a contract with the appropriate vendor. We're analyzing the vendors, because in Mexico, you can't just work with anyone. They have to be qualified vendors. So there's a whole accounting team behind all of that analysis to help our clients understand who they can and can't work with and why. So we're making sure that everything that's happening in Mexico is in compliance. So we've got a couple of buckets that we like to talk about. In regards to the shelter services that we offer, and it's the full gamut of startup as well as ongoing administration. The buckets are in legal and compliance. So anything that is in legal and compliance in Mexico, we are there with you. So everything from the lease agreement review to putting together an offer to hiring those contractors and getting started. That's what co-production does to serve its clients. Once we're kind of done with the ramp up, we're handling all of the utilities and infrastructure to that facility. Then we're importing equipment and making sure that we're ready for the startup of the production. We're hiring employees, sending them to different parts of the world for their training, bringing them back, and making sure that we're ready to start production in the timeframes that we've outlined together. Once we start production, then we have the ongoing administration. And the ongoing administration is in human resources, in recruitment, and importing and exporting daily. We're handling all of the finance to the Mexican vendors and all of the environmental health and safety obligations in the eyes of the Mexican government. So as a whole, that's all of the administrative services that Co-Production International offers its foreign clients in Mexico. The way that this works is through a US to US contractual relationship. So there's a contract between our two US companies, and in turn, our US company contracts with our Mexican company. That Mexican company is the one that signs the lease agreement. So Co-Production International is assuming all of the liability in Mexico, to include the signing of the lease agreement, the hiring of the employees, importing the raw materials and the capital equipment, exporting the final product to the US. So together we have this relationship and we're running that operation in Mexico. However, you keep full control of the production process. It's your ERP system, your raw materials, and your capital equipment. A lot of concerns that our clients might have once in a while is, well, who's branding themselves in Mexico? I want to brand myself. I want to make sure that everyone knows that Varian Medical exists in Mexico and that we have an operation there. That's an example. That is exactly what you can expect. So your company will be branded the way that you want it to be branded. Some companies like to stay confidential while they're operating in Mexico, and that's okay too. But the culture that is in the facility is your culture. So you are still very much, it's your operation. You're controlling everything that's happening in those four walls. We're just making sure that everything is in compliant in the eyes of the Mexican government. So in essence, that is the shelter program. And those are the administrative services that Co-Production International offers you. So some of the main advantages is timing. So we're able to get our clients started within 3 months of signing a lease agreement. You get all the benefits of the EVA refunds immediately. So you're not waiting around for an operation to be ready for you. So if you did this on your own, it would take you about 1.5 to 2 years for you to have your whole operation legally ready to be an EMEX. In the case of the shelter, we were already compliant. So we just plug you into one of our existing Mexican entities and you start to receive all those benefits from the inception. So this reduces all legal exposure in Mexico. You get to share the benefits of the economies of scale. That's really important to point out that if you do this on your own, you're going to need to hire a more robust staff in comparison to the US. And the staff at this level their salaries are more comparable to the US as well. So when we're talking about seasoned import-export or international trade and compliance directors, finance directors, human resource directors, you'd be surprised how closely their salaries are to the US. Therefore, can be very expensive for a new company who's setting up their factory in Mexico. So in the case of co-production, you're able to take advantage of our very seasoned staff who is providing administrative service supports to you and as well as to all of our existing clients. But most importantly, you keep full control of that operation in Mexico. So I think that's really cool about the shelter program. And I think this is something that we're finding today. I think out of every 10 with every 10 facilities that are setting up in Mexico, 8 are using a shelter. And I think the other 2 did not because they were not aware of the program. It's a great program. That concludes our presentation today. We talked about a lot of the site selection steps. We've talked about costs. We talked about the program. We gave you a case study. We really wanted to make this a comprehensive, high-level discussion on setting up a manufacturing facility in Mexico. This is what all of our initial discussions, this is how they start. From here, we would definitely get into more detailed conversations with you, understanding what you're going to be manufacturing in Mexico. You know, there's a lot of conversations on international trade and compliance and making sure that you qualify for full transformation and USMCA benefits. But all of that comes down the line. As a group, our job is to help prepare you and walk you every step of this journey that you're going to take in Mexico. I guarantee that you're going to love the food when you come down here. You're going to love the people. And this is going to be a great experience as you start this journey in Mexico. We invite you to come down and sign up for one of our tours. It's been a while because of COVID, but we're hoping to start these up again. Our clients have been very gracious in allowing us to take clients and to visit their factories. So reach out to Denise, the email's on here, so you can sign up for our next tour where we'll take you down to visit some existing facilities. I would maybe inventory buildings, not in Tijuana, but maybe in Monterey. Take you out to a great meal and really show you what Mexico manufacturing looks like for you. Have a great day. If there's any questions, this is the time.
Thank you, Veronica. Well, yes, our attendees are a little shy today. We don't have any questions so far. So we'll give them a minute in case they want to ask something.
Great.
Yes, so I guess we were able to answer most of the questions with your presentation. Don't forget that CPI offers a cost analysis for your potential operation in Mexico at no charge. If you're interested, just let me know. You have my email from the invitations to the webinar, or just go to our website, code-production.net, and send us a message there. Any questions or anything you need.
Wonderful.
Oh, there's a question. Hold on. Well, yes, we're gonna make a recording of the presentations and send it to the attendees. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Have a great day. Thank you, Denise.
There's just one more question. I'm sorry. If the U.S. tariff lifts, will manufacturing lose a major advantage in Mexico?
Not quite following. Yeah, but the question,
So,
if the U.S. tariff lifts?
You know, with the U.S.-China trade war, if that lifts, if that's over, do you think the demand and the trend of companies moving to Mexico is going to stop?
Well, I mean, we've been in the trade war since 2018, so it's definitely lasted a lot longer than I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. And based on the trends that we're seeing right now, which is Chinese investment coming in, the chairmans that I'm meeting with are definitely giving me a sense that there is a lot of political pressure and concerns in regards to China's position. So I do not see, even if the tariffs were to lift, which I don't see that happening, my opinion, I do not see this trend changing, at least in the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Veronica. Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending again, and see you next time for our next Insider Series webinar. And thank you, Veronica, for all this insightful information.
Wonderful. Have a great day.